Since Charlie Kirk's funeral is coming up, or the service that's coming up tomorrow for him in honor of him, I did want to spend a little bit more time talking about his impact, and I thought that would be appropriate because I've been thinking about it a lot over the last week since I last made a video, and the more I thought about it, I kind of felt like just simply saying Charlie Kirk was a conservative influencer is a bit of an understatement. And while he was a spokesperson for conservative values, and while he was one of the most prominent speakers on conservative values, I think that you could also add the title evangelist to that list. And I was actually talking about it with my dad a few days ago. And I said what he did was basically evangelism, maybe not in the traditional sense as you might experience it, but that was the underlying goal. The biblical values that he believed in, that was ultimately the message that he wanted to get to. And I think that saying that he was simply just a conservative influencer does not truly give him the credit for how hard he worked for God and how much he cared about sharing the gospel with other people. And I don't necessarily think that that was secondary. It was part of it, right? And he didn't always talk about religion. He didn't always talk about theology. He didn't always talk about biblical principles. But you could tell by the way he talked that those biblical principles undergirded his philosophy for life. And he tried to share that with people as much as he could. Now, me growing up, and if you've grown up in the church and you've had a pastor and you've had a congregation, then you've probably had somebody with the title of evangelist come to your church and preach and teach and speak about biblical things. And I don't think that that is uncommon. But usually, at least in the format that I've experienced it, it's the evangelist comes to you, he's invited to come to your church, and then he preaches to you. He preaches the Bible to you. And while Charlie Kirk didn't necessarily go to churches, I'm not sure how much of a history he has about of going to churches and speaking on these things. He did it a little bit differently where he would go to college campuses. But I think the impact was similar. I think the intent was similar, was that he was going to go from college campus to college campus and talk to as many people as possible. And in some ways, it is more impactful because unlike, if an evangelist comes to my church and preaches the gospel, it's not necessarily a conversation. It's a lesson that he is giving to the congregation. Charlie Kirk took it a step further where he would try to share the gospel with people, but then he would also allow them to actually have a conversation regarding the beliefs that he was presenting. And I feel like that mattered a lot to people, even to people that didn't agree with him. I think the fact that he was willing to have a conversation was the deciding factor. It's not that he was just preaching at somebody, talking at somebody. He was talking with people. He wanted to talk with people. And I think that made an impact in the lives of a lot of young people who maybe felt, especially conservative young people who might have felt somewhat outnumbered on these liberal college campuses. And I think that the way that the church has approached reaching young people that are not already a part of the church, it's not that the problem is not that the church is necessarily wrong about some of these things, but their method of communication, I think, is what has hurt them. And Charlie Kirk understood that you kind of had to balance the it matters more. Okay. So I think some people it shouldn't just be a bunch of do's and don'ts. If you're trying to explain the value of biblical principles. It shouldn't just be don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And I think that's maybe what some people have grown up with, and they are kind of turned off by it. And so whenever there is biblical principles brought up in a conversation, they immediately turn away from it and run away from it. But Charlie Kirk, while he was very outspoken about the things that he opposed, right? If he was talking about abortion, for example, and the conversation got a little bit more intense, then he would just say, abortion's evil, abortion's bad, abortion is gross, whatever he would say, right? And sometimes you just have to flat out just come right out and say that and say something like that. But he would also do something different. He would say he believes abortion is wrong, but then he would take it a step further and he would say, I believe abortion is wrong, but also here's why I believe that children are a great blessing and that why having children is a positive thing in your life. Because if you're just going to not yell, but if you're just going to basically lecture people, then I think that's a recipe for disaster on an intellectual level. Like people can only be lectured so much. Like you can only shame people. I think sometimes you can only shame people so much. And so it shouldn't just be, abortion's bad, abortion's bad. You need to explain to them, I believe that abortion is wrong morally, but I'm also going to explain to you why having a family is good, and why having children is good, and why having legacy is good. And so it has to be a multifaceted argument. You have to present both sides of it. Not just why abortion is bad, but why having children is good, why having a wife is good, why having a family is good. And I think he brought a really good balance to those things because when he would talk about, first he would say, abortion's not good, abortion is evil. Then he would say having a family is good and pure and holy and all these other things, having children is good. And then he would say, here are the biblical verses to back that up. And it wasn't just about abortion. I'm just using that as the main example, but he would he would talk about what he opposed, he would talk about what he's in favor of, and then later on in the conversation, he would present the biblical undergirding principles that reinforced what he believes. And I think that is much more potent than simply just going out and lecturing people on what you think is bad. And sometimes, hey, sometimes you just have to and in when you're talking about confronting evil, sometimes you just have to call it evil. Right? Sometimes you just have to say abortion is evil. And I don't think it's wrong to say that. But when you're talking to young people and you're trying to convince them that you care about them living a fulfilling life, you have to also explain to them why your specific philosophy and life and worldview leads to a fulfilling life. It can't just be bashing what they believe. You have to reinforce your own belief system. And he would use the Bible in a lot of cases to do that. But he had a good mix of both. He had a good mix of both. And again, I think some people, if you're in the middle of a political discussion and you just bring up the Bible, they just go, okay, well, you're just going to bring up the Bible and you're just going to use that. They lose interest in the conversation. But he did a good job of explaining his political view or his worldview or his lifestyle and why his lifestyle and philosophy is profitable to the lives of young people. And then he would undergird that and reinforce that with biblical scripture. So he was an evangelist. He wasn't a street preacher. He wasn't a preacher that comes to your church and just purely talks about the Bible and purely just preaches the Bible. He was kind of somewhere in between because he was also very knowledgeable about U.S. history and the Constitution and things like that. And those to me are, as far as some of his videos and my favorite videos of listening to him talking about the Constitution and American history, those were the most interesting to me. So it wasn't even necessarily biblical, even though he did defend the Constitution on biblical grounds, but he was an evangelist. That's what he was. He was a modern day evangelist with a unique twist. And I think the fact that he had a unique approach and he himself was a unique person is what made it resonate with so many young people. He had a special way of reaching young people and convincing them, like, here's how I'm going to show them what a profitable life looks like. And then here's how I'm going to reinforce that with the biblical principles that I believe in. And so I have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of respect for that. I think he presented I think he presented biblical principles and biblical ideas in a way in which not very many people would. It's not that people haven't tried, but I think he was just simply better at it. And it's unfortunate that we're not going to, people will. I'm sure there will be people that will rise to the occasion and do similar things that he will do, but it's very hard, if not impossible, to replace a person like that. And so, again, I just wanted to share that appreciation of his life and his ministry. And one thing that I didn't quite realize was there's this guy that I listen to. He's a Christian apologist, and he'll also go around to college campuses. It's a little more formal in the sense that, like, he'll give a lecture. It's not walk up to the microphone and let's debate necessarily, although he does allow people to come up and ask questions afterwards. But it's more of lecture format, lecture style. It's Dr. Frank Turek. And so he talks more specifically. Obviously, they will dive into politics and morality and things like that, but it's more specifically about the Bible and biblical history. So I didn't realize that he had very close connections to Charlie Kirk, and I guess he was a mentor of Charlie Kirk. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, I knew Charlie Kirk, and then knew about Dr. Frank Turek, but I didn't realize that um, they were best friends. And I think Dr. Frank Turek was actually present for the shooting. I think he was actually there when Kirk got assassinated, which is also just really sad. Sad for him and sad for the people that were there to witness that. But you have the you have the service remembering Charlie Kirk tomorrow, and I'll probably watch a little bit of that. Probably not on stream, but I'll probably look into that a little bit. And they're having it in Arizona, and they're having it at, is it where the Cardinals play? I'm not sure. It's some stadium, so I'm not sure if it's where the Cardinals play or it might be Arizona State or something like that. I don't know, but they're expecting a really big turnout, and I hope they have a really big turnout. I think, based upon what I have seen, just a lot of respect pouring in towards the Kirk family and Charlie Kirk's ministry, and lots of support, lots of prayers, lots of vigils and things like that. So I just hope it'll be an honorable moment, truly honoring his life and things that he stood for. But I also did want to talk a little bit about the assassination timeline and the evidence, because I, and honestly, I don't really like talking about this stuff, but um, I think it would be useful. I think it would be useful because I've just been kind of following it passively as just an observer, like a normal observer, but I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. From what I have been able to glean in terms of information. So here's the timeline, and hopefully by the time this video is over, we have a more established, more concise, with more information. Hopefully, we have that timeline better established. But so from what I understand, so Charlie Kirk is shot and he passes away in the hospital hours later. The shooter is not immediately caught. Shooter goes back home. He confesses to his father that he committed the murder. His father, who is a police officer, turns him in, and the ongoing investigation, they find the gun, they find the rooftop, they find evidence on scene. They they then, you have the pictures and the various different pictures that you've seen online, and then they've also found text messages that the shooter wrote to his partner and sent to his partner, which I guess were supposed to be deleted but weren't. And so there's also been some discussion about did he act alone and Discord chats. I don't know if that is. I'm going to try and verify that, but that's just what I've heard. Trying to figure out like who was all connected and is there any incriminating evidence in various different Discord chats that the shooter may or may not have been a part of. So that's just kind of like I said, that's bread and butter information. That's just passively as an observer what I have gotten over the last week and a half. So I'm going to look into it a little bit more, which is what we'll do right now. So let's go. Let's go here. Okay, just want to make sure I get this popping up here. Okay. So this is from ABC News by Mary Kekados and Camilla Alcini. And I probably won't read it word for word, but I'm just going to go through it here and you guys can follow along. One question I did want to try and one thing I did want to try and figure out is because people have been saying that the close-up pictures that they have gotten of this Robinson guy, he's wearing a hat and sunglasses, but just in terms of facial structure does not look like him. But I don't know if he was arrested wearing the same clothes that were seen in the pictures. That's one thing that I wanted to try and figure out here. Okay, changes into dark clothing on campus. Okay, I think the initial suspect that they had in custody that was originally released. That's the pictures of that older gentleman, the other gentleman that was shown being taken into custody, who ended up not having anything to do with it. One question my dad was asking was when it comes to finding the rifle, is that the rifle was found, I believe, in a wooded area not too far from the campus. Yeah, the weapon was found in a wooded area where the shooter had fled, and the FBI will analyze the weapon. That's a quote from Bowles, who was a special agent from the FBI that was on the case. Is it looked like when the video or picture evidence of Robinson on campus before the shooting, he was kind of limping around, and what people were saying was because he had put the rifle down his pant leg, and so it was down his pant leg and then also covered by his shirt, so he was limping around because he couldn't bend his leg. So that's how he was able to get the rifle onto campus and into position. But then also you see that video of him jumping off the roof, and it's from further away, so you can't really tell is because you can't tell 100%, at least from what I've seen, that he has the rifle with him. So how did the rifle get I'm assuming he had it with him, you just couldn't see it, and then he threw it into that wooded area while he was trying to escape and get out of there. But it's hard to see from the video if he actually had the rifle while he was jumping off the roof because that's a decent drop. Here's some of those photos that I was talking about where you have closer shots of his face, but he has the glasses and the hat on. Cox says that after Cox says, quote, that after the Robinson's father recognized his son in the distributed photographs, he told Robinson to turn himself in. Robinson initially said no, but later changed his mind, officials said. Father then called a youth pastor who was also a U.S. Marshals task force officer. The officer advised the father to have Robinson stay in place. This information was then conveyed to the FBI. Okay, nothing really new there. I want to look at the text messages here. And this is the New York Post article by Victor Nava going into detail about the text messages that were found. So the article says, quote, FBI Director Kash Patel on Monday revealed a chilling text message that Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, sent that may indicate a motive for last week's shooting. What was found in terms of information, a text message exchange where the suspect specifically stated that he had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do that, Patel said during an appearance on Fox News Hannity. And when Robinson was asked why, he said some hatred cannot be negotiated with. The FBI director added, Robinson, 22, is accused of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk from a rooftop over 150 yards away from an event on the campus of Utah Valley University, where the 31-year-old conservative activist was speaking to a massive crowd. Patel noted that evidence has also been collected through witness interviews showing that Robinson essentially admitted to killing Kirk after the September 10th shooting. The suspect admitted to it, the FBI director said, without going into detail, and noting that he would not stylize the evidence. And this is from Newsweek, an article from Newsweek by Joshua Rhett Miller, Jesus Mesa, and Gabe Wisnant. And the article says quote, prosecutors on Tuesday revealed text messages between accused gunman Tyler Robinson and his roommate Lance Twiggs, in which Robinson admitted to killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk, described hiding his rifle and detailed his planning in the days before the shooting. According to court files, Robinson first instructed Twiggs to look under his computer keyboard where a handwritten note said, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it. When Twiggs responded in disbelief, Robinson wrote, I'm sorry, later explained that police had mistakenly detained others while he tried to recover his weapon. In the full exchange included in the documents obtained by Newsweek, Robinson told Twiggs, if I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence, before adding, going to attempt to retrieve it again, I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find friends. Also said, I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. He also referenced having engraved the bullets for shock value, texting, if I see notices bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. Okay, so I guess that kind of answers the question that I was asking about about him being arrested in the same outfit. So he changed outfits while he was in the woods trying to hide his weapon or find his weapon again. And it looks like here's the full exchange as well. Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to get past. I mean, if this exchange, if all of this is real and it's authentic and everything, it's just hard to get past. Um, I feel like it's hard to get past thinking that this was anybody else because he he admits like here's a motive or partial motive, admits that he's the one who did it. Yeah, and I will say, just online, the conspiracy theories have been going wild. I have seen things. Oh, it's Israel. Oh, it's I saw a drone. Oh, I think I saw a muzzle flash. And I just I just don't have the energy to go through all of that, to be completely honest. And I don't think it's useful. I don't think it's particularly useful. Um, like I said, if these findings are the authentic findings, then again, it's hard to argue with whether or not he was the one that did it. Now, people also part of the various different conspiracies, I guess, is that there is a Discord. There is Discord chats of him with other people. Let's see if I can find anything on that here. Okay, and this is also from Newsweek article by Marnie Rose McFall titled Tyler Robinson's Discord messages revealed. He looks like he was in a Discord chat where he kind of vaguely says he didn't say that specifically that he was the one that shot Charlie Kirk, but he says, quote, "Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." Goes on to say, "Thanks for all the good times and laughs." And then also looks like just posting about political stuff, posting about Trump, posting about Biden. Okay, like just to me, it just seems a little bit more straightforward. I feel like this happens, and this is why conspiracy theories I think can be damaging to a certain extent, is because it provides no closure. And look, if there's more going on, then there's more going on, right? And if we can find better evidence for that, then fair enough. But I'm just saying that it brings no closure, like to anything really. And again, all the people's like, well, it was Israel. I think people just kind of have Israel is just on the brain for everybody. It's always Israel's fault. And the Discord chats, another theory that I have seen online is that he wasn't acting as a lone wolf. I think they call it the lone wolf theory. It's like, yeah, he was talking to people in Discord, and that there's more going on and there's more people involved and there had to be more people involved. Here's when it comes to the internet, obviously, if there are people talking about committing violence and murder or admitting to violence and murder on the internet, then that's obviously a problem. But when it comes to these Discord chats, if you search hard enough, like if you got on Reddit, Discord, some of these other uh what I would consider to be more obscure social media platforms, I feel like that you could find pretty much anybody that would be just anybody that would say anything or agree with anything. So you can find very extreme and niche groups of people that will agree with what you're doing or what you're saying. Okay. And obviously, if they're trying to help you plot murder or the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that's not good and should obviously be addressed. But I'm just saying that just because he was on Discord talking with people about other political things does not mean that people on Discord are also partly responsible. I just think that that's a slippery slope. I mean, based upon what was found on his Discord feed, it was just him kind of somewhat ambiguously saying, "Yeah, it was me who did it at the university the other day," and then him having various discussions about Trump potentially getting impeached and then Biden. And I fail to see, I do not see how the other people in his Discord chat are involved. And so I think that that theory can be just based upon what I've read there. I don't really know how you could paint the picture that all these people in the Discord chat, they were on board with it, they were fine with it, they were, part of the conspiracy or part of the planning or whatever. So I like I said, I don't have much energy to go through all the conspiracies and all of these different things. I think that again it takes away from closure, and then also it takes away from the sense that real justice has been applied. Because if you're out here in the weeds and you're buying into all of these conspiracy theories, then whether or not the shooter, this Robinson kid, gets the death penalty, that doesn't really matter because you have the whole, well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was just the guy who took the fall, and there is no justice. There is no justice when you get into when everything becomes a conspiracy, there is no closure, there is no justice. Because yes, you might think, well, he was part of it, so he got caught and he got what he deserved. But then you have all these other underlying things that people are talking about as well. And so you can't really believe if you believe that, oh, it was actually Israel, or oh, that it was actually a drone, or actually the shooter was much closer because I saw a supposed muzzle flash that was like 40 yards away. If you believe all this stuff, then there is no justice, because the whole conspiracy is about all of these other people that were involved, and this guy was just a fall guy and he didn't actually do it. And obviously if more information comes out that other people involved, and that's fine. But as of right now, it just looks like this guy operated alone. And for the sake of for the sake of his family, for the sake of Kirk's family, I hope that they can put all of this to rest and actually figure out and build a strong case against this guy, because again, closure and justice, that matters. Closure and justice, I think that matters. And also just sad that this young man decided to take Charlie Kirk's life, completely destroys his family. Completely just destroys his family. And now his family could potentially have to go the rest of their life without their son, whether or not he gets the death penalty. And now their family name is just going to live throughout history. Yeah, that was, their kid killed Charlie Kirk. And so he he kills Charlie Kirk, which is extremely sad on its own. But then you consider Charlie Kirk's wife and kids that now have to go through life without him. And then the shooter's family is also pulled into this, and they will not be remembered in a positive way. They will always be connected to this for the rest of their life. Right? If he's the one that really did it, then they will be connected to this for the rest of their life. And so now their family is destroyed in a sense. And so just a just a catastrophe on every level for many of the people that were close to both parties. Just it's really, really sad. And like I said in the beginning, I hope that this service remembering him tomorrow will be filled with praise. It'll be filled with, sharing the gospel. It'll be filled with people there to pay their respects, and that it'll be honorable and safe. I hope all of those things. Um, I hope it goes that way tomorrow. So, and I'm sure this probably won't be the last time we talk about Charlie Kirk or the Kirk family, because I saw that Turning Point USA actually put Erica Kirk in charge as the chairman. And so she seems like a very capable woman. She seems like a very capable, obviously a very successful individual. And she seems, um, kudos to her for taking on that responsibility, because I think that's a very tough burden to bear. It's a very heavy burden to bear, especially with everything that has transpired recently. It's hard to go from. I feel like it'd be very hard to go from wife and mother to wife. Well, you know, to just go to a mother. You don't have your husband there to help you in life anymore, and then to be asked to be the chairman of Turning Point USA. That's a lot to take on. And so massive respect to her. And as she gets more and more involved in the realm of politics, I'm sure we'll be talking about her and her family as well. So, um, I hope that obviously it's not going to be the best day for them, but I hope that they are blessed by the outcome and blessed by how many people respected Charlie and his legacy. And so I hope it ends up being a blessing to them, just seeing however many people turn out for the service tomorrow.